Hi, all. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Chelsea Cunico, and I'm a second year in the full-time MBA program here at Terry. I'm joined by Mike Pfarrer, the Associate Dean of Research and Executive Programs, and Terry, Distinguished Chair of Business Administration, as well as my professor this semester. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
So to begin, we'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and industry experience prior to joining UGA.
Sure, happy to do that. So graduated undergrad in 1992, and then went to work as an investment consultant in Philadelphia. That really helped set the groundwork for where I am today, because a lot of the research that I do around crisis management and corporate communications. In the end of the 90s, I spent about 4 years overseas. Actually, I spent two different times overseas, one as a student, as an undergrad, and then 3 full years between 97 and 99 in a town in Austria that was on the Swiss border. So I like to speak German when I can. At the turn of the century, came back, did some baseball coaching. I played over in Europe as well, and I did some baseball coaching at a Division II school called North Alabama, where I got my MBA. So sometimes I tell folks that I also worked when I got my MBA. I was doing some baseball coaching, so I understand for a lot of you all, and then of course many of our MBAs in Atlanta, that I understand what it means to work at the same time to get your MBA. So I could share that experience. Went to Maryland for my PhD, got really great training there, still friends and co-authors with some of my colleagues from there. Finished there in 2007 and spent a couple years at the University of Denver. I had a wonderful experience there, but had the opportunity to come here in 2009 as an assistant professor, got promoted as associate, full professor. And now I've been associate dean. This is my 7th year, and just had an unbelievable opportunity to work with a lot of great leaders in the college. The previous dean, who's now the provost, Ben Ayers, set a great foundation. And of course, I've worked with Shantanu, our current dean, for many years. And in his previous role was running the MBA program and the MSBA program. And finally, I get to teach all of our MBAs. So I get to teach our full-time MBAs. And then we have executive MBAs who tend to have around 20 years of experience in Atlanta, professional MBAs who tend to have about 10 years of experience in Atlanta. And then we've had a successful launch of an online program that's now in its 3rd year that has grown from 50 to 125 plus.
Oh, wow.
And it's really rewarding. As I like to say, the wisdom's in the room. The things that I teach and talk about are very practically oriented. We talk about strategic decision making. As I like to say, you never have enough time, you never have enough money, and you never have enough good information. So how are you going to handle these trade-offs? And that goes into crisis. It goes into traditional strategic decisions. And so what I teach you all in the full-time program are the same sort of things that I teach in Atlanta. And then finally, I also do executive education, which I oversee administratively. And we have a great program out there. So I'm fortunate enough to help administrate those and also teach in them. And of course, I'm still an active researcher as well. And so
Right.
I work with PhD students. And so, but what I teach is actually what I research. So in that way, it's kind of cool. It's very practically oriented around corporate communications, crisis management, decision-making under uncertainty, biases, and things like that. So that's it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And we definitely want to dive more into your industry experience as
Sure.
well as your research. But first, to come back to UGA. So
Sure.
you've been at UGA for 17 years.
Correct.
I'd love to hear a little bit about how the full-time program has changed and grown in that time.
Absolutely. The full-time program is one of our shining stars. You as the students represent it so well. Anu and his team deserve so much credit. So we have a really great brand thanks to our students. People look to the Terry College as a leader in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're teaching, what are the characteristics that really stand out amongst your students?
So I think what I really like about our students is that many of them come with work experience. And in my class, whether it's here or in Atlanta, that's really important because, I say things like rip from the headlines, and I want to be able to hear what your experiences were. If you were part of an acquisition or you were part of a crisis or a data breach that you experienced. So what I really like is that the students take it seriously.
Yeah.
They appreciate, I think, the practicality of the class. You have to learn fundamentals too, right? But I like the practicality of it, and I think the students appreciate that it's very real world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think myself and my peers really appreciate the discussion-based classroom style as well that you provide.
Right.
So for those incoming students, like our pathways, who don't necessarily have that same level of work experience,
Right.
how would you kind of encourage them to navigate that sort of setting?
That's a great question because we do have some really smart folks coming over in the pathway. And you bring up a really good point. If they don't have that work experience, they might not necessarily be able to relate. But you'd be surprised, and I'm happily surprised, is that the way I run my class, I'm pushing you to make contributions professionally and politely, of course, but I want you to be able to read the material and associate it with something that you've done. And I've found over time, because I would even ask the full-time MBAs, say they have a pathway in their group or something like that. Hey, how are they doing? They're participating. And inevitably it's like they're doing a great job. They might not have the same sort of experience, but they're eager and they're willing to learn. And the rest of it kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think the fact that they're in the room proves that they have the motivation and the skills
Perfectly
to be
said,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Perfectly said. They want to be here. They're going to work hard. We get it. They're going to take it seriously. And they definitely do that. And they're smart. They're smart students. They may be a little younger. They may have a little less experience, but I get feedback from you all to say like, hey, you know what? They make a great contribution.
Yeah, they really do. And so a lot of what we discuss in class is there's always sort of like a gray area, right?
Right.
So how do you prepare students to be able to be in those positions where there may not be necessarily a right or clear path
Right.
forward?
I really like that you bring that up because I always joke, whether I'm in Atlanta or teaching you all, said, I will provide you with no solutions all semester or all day whenever I'm teaching, because if you don't have enough time, money, or good information, you're going to have to make decisions where the outcome is not 100% certain.
Mhm.
We talk about that. There's trade-offs, right? But I'll say trade-offs in a negative way. I say this, and I know you heard it. I'm putting you in a position to experience these things that you will out in your jobs. And it really becomes a matter of experience. So if you've never witnessed someone doing something unethically, or you've never been part of a crisis or even a merger, the more we talk about it, you can put yourself in those positions so that you have some experience. And of course, the real world will give you those experiences.
Mhm.
The industry will give you those experiences. But we talk about things so that they don't come as a shock to you. As you've heard me joke, I said, you can't play a piano perfectly tomorrow. But if we go through those simulations and those cases, then you start to recognize things to say, hey, this is what's coming down. Here's how I can handle it. And then what I always hope for you is that the company that you work for has processes in place about consistency and and preparedness that doesn't put you in a bad position where you have to figure something out with no resource. So bottom line, I want to provide us with scenarios, cases, articles that mimic the stuff that you're going to walk into.
Yeah, absolutely. And you already kind of touched on this a little bit,
Mhm.
but both with your industry experience and your research
Yeah.
connecting with what you're teaching in the classroom, I'd love to learn a little bit more about like how your research ties into like the cases and the scenarios that we're talking about.
Right. So I learn from you all every day. So a lot of the research that I do as I say is if something wrong happens at a company, how do they communicate both that internally and externally to different stakeholder groups? So messaging is a big part about what I
Okay.
do, right? And so I will have research that if you restated your earnings or if you missed earnings or something like that, how do you communicate that to the financial community? How do you communicate that to your employees? Many of the things that I do research wise revolve around crisis management, issue management. So if you're speaking out about certain things that aren't directly tied to your stock price, right?
Mm,
And so when regulations change or social norms change and
mm.
things like that, how do you manage that messaging both internally and externally?
And so, with the rapid integration of emerging technologies like AI in the workplace, how are you evolving the curriculum to ensure MBA students stay up to date?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because I want folks to look at AI as a tool. And so we talked about this in class a little bit. I go, this phone is a tool, right? The calculator, when it came out, was a tool. And so if we focus on a class being about managing difficult things or communicating those things, AI can help you, whether you're presenting a case to me or you're writing a press release. You can use it as a tool to help you focus around what you want to do. But as I like to also joke is like, I hope my class helps show them that humans are still really, really important in decision-making processes. Because AI is great with what we already know,
Mm.
but it might not be as good at being creative and innovative. But if you use it as a tool to supplement your own creativity to deal with these very difficult decisions under uncertainty that you have, I encourage you to use it. AI may help you craft a better or a more effective presentation. You, whether you're a student or you're a mid-level manager presenting to your CEO, you still have to deliver that information.
Hmm.
So we should be able to harness it and use it as a tool to make our work lives, sure, more efficient on the day-to-day stuff, but also help support our creativity as human beings. So I'm still very pro-human in this situation.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, I think
As I
also,
try to communicate.
right.
Very pro-human, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that aligns with what we've heard from you in class. And then I would also add that just like as much as we can try to predict human response, there's
Yes,
always going to be a level of humanization that we can't meet. And so it's
right.
helpful in that sense.
It is. It's a great tool. I think the current line is you won't be replaced by AI, but you better be able to harness it because you will need it in your job.
Right. So over the years, you've seen the professional journey of over hundreds of students.
Mhm.
And what is one characteristic or value that you hope each student carries from your classroom?
Yeah, I hope, as I like to say, is that, we're preparing you for going out there. We should be providing you with actionable skills,
Yeah.
right? Skills that you can apply in the real world. Will you learn something? Sure. But I think, especially with the courses I take, I want you to take away very marketplace ready skills. I'm giving you opportunities because every chance you get to experience something that is gray,
Hmm.
right? And we discuss it, every chance you get to talk to me in a formal setting
Yeah.
to deliver something, you get more confidence being up in front, if you can tell a logical, consistent story that doesn't put people to sleep, you can make a lot of money, as I like to say. But I want you to come away with market skills,
Yeah.
right? There are basics that you have to learn. This is an institute of higher learning,
Hmm.
but our job is to train the next set of business leaders. So I want you to come away with business skills that you can readily put into place and not feel like you have to dust off the academic side of stuff.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank
Great.
you so much for joining us
My
today. It's been
pleasure.
a real pleasure talking with you. If you're interested in joining the UGA MBA program, all information is in the description below.